All right, guys. So it's just Michael here, and I am super excited to have you here right now. It's a special season for me, right? Because of what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. We're beginning a series, right, called the Virtues of Advantage, right? Virtues of Advantage, and this is something that has been placed in my heart. I think since last month, right? Because I wanted to actually begin a 30-day content series, right? And one of the things new that occurred to me was like, okay, so I am on a journey, right, to becoming a person of influence, becoming a person of value, right, immense value, right, to contributing, right. And what are some of the things, right? That was my question. What are some of the things that have actually helped me in my journey to becoming, right? And can I actually start sharing these things and teaching people? Because I believe strongly that they say that when you're successful, it leaves clues, right? The same way when you failure, it leaves clues, right? Success leaves clues. So what are the clues? What are there some conditions or some characteristics or some traits, right, that successful people, A players, right, high performers, and people who are the one top, the top 1% in every industry, across industry, whether you're in online marketing, you're in medicine, you're in music, media, whatever industry you're in, what are some of the characteristics of people who have been able to make it to the echelon of their career, right? So that's why I created this series, right? To be able to share these things as I discover them, as I'm learning them myself, and as I am applying them, right? To be able to share them with you, in order to help you learn them as well, and also apply in order for you to see massive changes in your life, right? So this series we call the virtues of advantage, right? It's not just about learning things, right? It's also about understanding visible and invisible forces, right, of success, right? So what I've come to find is that many times, right, when you see people who are successful, and you might get tempted to think that some of the things that you're seeing outwardly, right, are the things that make them successful. For example, their cars, the kind of cars that they are driving, the kind of houses that they're living in, the kind of, women they fuck around with, and all of those kind of things. You might be tempted to think that those are the things that actually make them successful. And what many people do is that at a very base level, right, what they do is that they tend to try to model those things, right, without understanding that what they are seeing is simply the principle of cause and effect, right? For there to be an effect, there has to be a cause. So they try to model the effect without understanding the cause, right? So the idea of this of the virtues of advantage series we're going to be having is to help you to understand the invisible and visible forces that actually drives a thing, that makes for success. We're going to come to that anyway. We're going to go into the details of that during the series, right? But it's to help you understand the visible and invisible forces, right? So if someone is successful, what are the visible things? What are the things that you can see? What are the things that are said, right? What are the things that are made obvious, the obvious things, right? Now, if someone is not is successful as well, what are some of the invisible things that might not be glaring to the eye? What are some of the principles that they might have that they are currently abiding by, right, that is making all of the difference, that makes them successful, right? Because you'll be making a mistake to think it's money that actually makes people to be a success, right? That's a very shallow-minded kind of thinking, right? But as you begin to mature, in this series, one of the things that you're going to learn is that money is actually it is an effect, right? It is a result. Like I've said before several times on many other of my videos, money is actually an effect. It is not a cause, right? It is not a cause. It is a result. It is not a cause, right? So in the series, we're going to be talking about the invisible and visible forces of success, right? Also, we're going to be talking about something that I really thought about doing during the series is, in as much as there are universal principles for success, I also understand that there are unique rules that applies to your reality, right? Now, let me explain what that means. So universally, we understand that for you to be successful, you need to do this. For example, you need to know how to network. You need to know how to you need to understand budgeting. Some of those basic things, right? We understand that. Now we also right? I mean, these are like general principles right now. We will be looking in the series, right? We will be looking at things that are unique to your realities, right? So, for example, for someone who is born in third world Africa, right, what are some of the tools, right? What are some of the options that are available to you being born in third world Africa that can, I mean, that if you tend to apply the principle of someone who works or like who lives in the first world country and is open to the opportunities of the first world country, it might not work for you here, right? So you need to understand what is unique for you, the things that you can do, the things that applies for you being someone who is born into third world Africa. And that's what the series is going to be talking about. So I'm not just going to be telling you principles. I'm not just going to be telling you, oh, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. I'm going to be giving you things, ideas, things that are relative, right? Things that apply, right? Things that apply to your realities as someone who is from third world Africa, right? That's one of the things that you're going to be learning in this series, and that's one of the ways I'm going to be structuring the series. And the reason is because I don't just want to pass information. I understand that information is only a means to an end. Information that cannot be applied is a useless information, right? Information that is not applied or cannot be applied is very useless information. It's as good as a waste of time, right? So one of the things I'm going to be doing here is to share with you information, right? Information that actually apply to your current realities, right? And how to navigate basically. And yes, I am not Mr. Charity, okay? Just so you understand, you might be asking yourself, Michael, why are you doing all of this? I'm going to say here and now, this is not me. I mean, I have a selfless reason and I have a very selfish reason right now. The selfless reason is the fact that, I mean, I want you guys to learn, right? I want you guys to learn. See, the fight is not between the both of us. The fight is not with you and your brother. The fight is not with you and your cousin. It's not with you and your enemies, right? The fight is actually between you and poverty, right? And when you begin to understand that, then you begin to ask yourself critical questions, right, as to questions that allows you and helps you to unlock, right, the realities that can actually transform your life. Okay, now that's a very selfless reason, right? I'm doing this because I just want you to succeed, right? Because if you succeed, right, it is easier for those around you to succeed as well. And if you succeed, by extension, who knows, I mean, you could be of help to anybody, if not even me, maybe a family member or something. I mean, your win is my win, basically, right? I understand that there is a system of reward that the universe gives to people who are willing to give as well, right? And that is what it is basically. Right now, there is a selfish reason, and my selfish reason is that as time goes on, during the course of time, right, I mean, this teaching is going to be in series, and it is going to be, I mean, it's going to be very thick, it's going to be very deep. I'm going to be diving into details. So my goal, I mean, in a few months from now, or maybe a few years from now, right, will be to package this, right, into a program and sell it, right? So I just want you to understand. So if you have access to this now, right, this is probably the only time you get access to this information for free, right? This is the first and only time you will get access to this information for free. And when I'm going to be letting it out, it is going to be at a premium. So pay attention to the things that I'm going to be sharing with you in this series right now. We're going to be starting first of all. That being said, we're going to be starting first of all with what are the virtues of advantage right now? Virtues of advantage basically are the things that that can manifest in a person's life, right, that gives them the advantage or increases their chances of hitting success, right, by drastical count, right, drastically increase their chances of becoming successful, right? So what are some of these things? I mean, I've studied very successful people. I've seen a pattern. I've seen the patterns, I've seen the similarities, I've seen the correlation, I've seen the things that actually makes these guys different from the average person, from the person who is struggling, right, from the person who is not unsuccessful, right? I've seen a pattern, and these patterns are the things that I'm going to be sharing with you right away. And one of them, we're going to start by discussing what I call curiosity, right? And that's the very first thing we're going to start talking about now. So what is curiosity? Why is it a virtue of advantage, right? Why do I need curiosity? Why is it important why is it an important arsenal I need to put? Why is it an important weapon that I need to add to my arsenal on my way to success? Is it important? If it's important, how important is it? Why is it important? These are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be telling you, some of its advantages, right? And also the concept consequences, right? The consequences of not having curiosity in your life or being a curious person, right? I'm going to be sharing all of these things with you. So let's get right in, right? So the very first thing, right, that I would like to do, right, is for me to define what curiosity is, right? So when you look at it carefully, right, you need to understand that curiosity, right, is a vague word. If you go to the dictionary, you see different definition. But from my study, right, I've been able to find out that my definition for curiosity, right, is the ability. Now, pay attention to me, because we've gone into the lesson already. Curiosity, I like to define it as the ability, pay attention, to remain inquisitive, right, and question things deeply enough, right, in order to understand the visible and invisible forces, right, that drives the thing, right, and how you can decode and unlock the next level of that thing, right? So I'm going to repeat that again, right? I said curiosity is the ability, right, to remain inquisitive, right, and question things deeply in order to understand the visible, the things your eyes can see, the visible forces, right, and the invisible forces as well, right? The forces your eyes can see and the ones your eyes cannot see, right? That drives that thing, and how you can decode or unlock the next level of that thing. So in by this definition, right, you're going to notice a couple of keywords, right? Keywords like remain inquisitive, right? Keywords like questioning things, right? Keywords like deeply, keywords like understanding, right? Understanding, keywords like visible and invisible forces, right? Keywords like decode, words like unlock, and words like next level, right? So I'm going to break all of this for you just so you can understand it better, right? Now, I said this is the ability to remain inquisitive, right? Now, when you look at our society, when you look at the way school is built, as a child, right? I remember having a conversation with my nephew, right, some years ago, and I asked him to do something, and the next thing he did was this was, I think at the time it was about 5 years or so, right? And he was asking me questions. He said, why, right? He was like, why do you want me to do this? Why, and all of that. And then I realized that one of the things that we are born with, right? One of the things that God gives to us as children, this is something that we are born with, is our ability to remain inquisitive, right? So but then when you get into school, right, when you get into society, when you start mingling, right, one of the things that happens is that your capacity for inquisitiveness begins to diminish, right, because you are born into a system of education, you're born into a system of life that says things like, that punishes, inquisitiveness, right? So in school, when you ask, in school sometimes when you ask too many questions, you're asked to shut up and sit down, that kind of a thing, right? And when that begins to happen repeatedly, what happens is that you find it difficult, right, for you to ask questions, because you're shy, you might be turned down, you're shy, you might be embarrassed, that kind of a thing, right? Or if it doesn't even punish you that way, it punishes you in the way that, right, if you do not follow according to how you're told, right, which is like the machine kind of operation, right? If you do not do as you're told, like lecturers, they come to class, they teach you, and then they tell you when they write exams, if you're someone who is curious and probably you went to do your own research, and all of those kind of things, just to ensure that you have a better understanding, sometimes the lecturer can actually fail you, because what you find is that sometimes the answers that you come back with are things that are deeper than the things that the lecturer taught you. And many times the lecturers just want you to do copy and paste because they want you to buy handouts, they want you to buy all of these things. So what that does is that it begins to help you, it begins to shape you in such a way that you begin to see life as a place where you get punished for being inquisitive instead of being rewarded, right? You begin to feel like life is a place where you get punished for being inquisitive, right? So you've seen people who, in history, if you look through history, you see people, history is replete with, examples of people who, throughout their life, or, at one point or the other, they were inquisitive. They asked questions about things. They asked questions why things were the way that they are, right? And guess what? Maybe these guys were thrown to jail, society, maybe the government even tagged what they did as rebellion. And then we see these things. We're brought up in this environment, right? We're brought up in this environment, and then we realize that for these things, many times the people who ask questions, the people who question the status quo, right, what happens to them? They are being punished for doing these things, right? And then because it is like that, what does it happen? It blunts your ability to remain inquisitive. It blunts your ability to question things deeply. It blunts your ability. So when that happens consistently, right, the result is a society, young people, right, who just swallow things according to how they are being told, right? You just take things for what they are, right, or what people say that they are without questioning them deeply enough. Right? So you need to understand that when you think of curiosity, right, one of the things that makes a curious person is their ability to remain inquisitive and to question things deeply enough. Now, there are different ways of questioning things, which I'm going to come to anyway. Like I said in the series, it's not a rush, right? And there are different ways of actually questioning things, right? There are ways to question. You can question things on a shallow level. I'm going to discuss that when we're talking about the different levels of curiosity, right? You can question things on a shallow level. I can also question things on a deeper level, right? Now you need to understand that the things that actually makes what actually makes the difference between A players and and F players, right, or E players, right? As it's not just the ability to question things, right, but the ability to question things deeply. Because when you question things deeply, right, it unlocks there's what it unlocks in you, right? It unlocks a certain kind of space, right, in your mind, right, that opens you up, that begins to open you up to understanding the principles, right, the visible and invisible forces that actually runs this thing, right? So when you look at, let's say for example, this is my wristwatch, right? Let's use this as an example, right? So this is a Hublot wristwatch, right? This is a Hublot wristwatch, right? And if I was a curious person about this wristwatch, right? If I'm curious about it now, one of the things that I'm going to do is I could take a look at this wristwatch, right, and look at it and say, okay, so this is a Hublot wristwatch. It has a second stick, right, however that is called. It has the pendulum swing. These things are moving in the wristwatch, right? I begin to ask myself, okay, so this is a black strap, right? Why is it, first I'm observing this, right? Why is it a black strap, right? Why is it a black strap? Why not a blue strap? Okay, in fact, why is it even a rubber strap in the first place? Why don't we use rope in the strap, right? Why is it not a rope? Why is it not paper? Why is it not cotton material? Like, why is the strap not a cotton material strap? All of these kind of things. And then I begin to question it now. Now, as a result of questioning all of this stuff, right, I'm in a state of inquisitiveness, right? I begin to question this and then I'm thinking deeply, okay, so there's the second hand there. I'm seeing some visible things right here. One of the visible things I'm seeing right here is that there is a hand that is moving, right? There's something that's ticking here. Now, I begin to ask myself, okay, so that is a visible force, right? That's a visible force. Now, the invisible force, what could cause this thing? What could be the reason why this thing is ticking and moving the way it is moving? What is the invisible force driving this thing? And then that might prompt me to what? To open up this wristwatch, right? To want to open up this wristwatch from here and see, okay, so I open it up and I see that, oh, this wristwatch actually has what they call an engine, right? Apart from the engine, the engine has a battery. The battery is what powers it for it to be able to move. So can it have an engine? And then if it just had an engine and there was no battery, right, will it still be moving as it's moving, right? What is going to be the consequences of having a machine, right, in this wristwatch and not having a battery? So you're looking at these things, you're understanding the visible and invisible forces that actually drives this thing, that drives the movement of this thing, that drives the movement of that tick you're seeing here, right? You're questioning so that you can understand the force. And while you're trying, once you question it deep enough, one of the things that happen is that you begin to decode, right? You begin to decode how this thing works. You begin to decode what that thing is. You begin to decode the whole thing, right? And once you're able to decode it, right, you now move to that phase where you say, okay, I've been able to understand how this thing works, right? So now, what is the next level of that thing? How can I improve on this thing? If we turn this black strap to, let's say for example, to green, will it make sense? Can we have a wooden strap? Can we have a leather strap? Can we have a cotton strap? What is it, right? When you question it deep enough, right? That is when you question it deep enough, you understand the visible and invisible forces, right? That's going to drive you towards. It's going to drive you to be able to decode, right, and then unlock the next level of this thing. That is where the energy of innovation is, right? And many times what people actually call spiritual, right, is just, it's scientific principles, it's invisible forces that is at work, that they have been just so lazy for them. We're going to come to that anyway, that have been just so lazy to decipher, to understand, to question, right, and to reason out. So you need to be able to understand, in order to be able to understand the visible and invisible forces that actually drives this thing. This is one of the things that your school takes away from you when you're young, the ability to question things critically. Now, it reminds me a lot of what my mentor used to tell me. My mentor would tell me, say, Michael, curiosity is the mother of all inventions, right? When you see an invention, understand that there is curiosity at play there. There is no invention without curiosity. If you want to be an inventive person, if you want to be an innovative person, then you have to be someone who is inquisitive, right? And you're able to question things deep enough, right? Now, I asked my cousin a question some days ago. I said, man, why do you always eat meat last, right? And he was like, man, I never thought of it. It's probably because I saw my parents doing it, right? Or because I saw I grew up, I saw those around me doing it. They get food and then they eat their meat last. It is a programming, right? You question it deeply enough, right? So many times people just, they just find themselves being born into something, or just they see a pattern and then they are not smart enough to question those things. After all, monkey see what monkey do. That's how it works, right? So you need to understand that curiosity, like my mentor always says, is the mother of all invention. If you want to be big on innovating, if you want to be big on invention, if you want to be big on being able to pioneer things, right, to decide the next level of things. We talk about artificial intelligence today. Artificial intelligence is what it is because there were people who were curious, right, about artificial intelligence in order to be able to decide, okay, so before now it was analog, now it's digital. Digital is actually a child of analog, right? It came as a result of human beings being able to question these things deep enough, understand the visible and invisible forces, right, of how this thing works, and be able to decode what is there so that they can unlock the next level of that thing. Basically, that is what it's about. 20 years ago, a phone, most phones actually did not have this kind of a camera. I'm having this video right now from my phone. I'm shooting it from my phone, right? 20 years ago, I most likely would not have been able to do this with my phone. But guess what? There were phones at the time. There were analog phones, all of those kind of things. They were DeX phones or whatever they call them, right? All these things were available there. But the question now is, did they have this capacity? But the truth of the matter is that right in those phones 20 years ago were things, were clues, right? Were patterns, were indicators, right, of how we could actually birth a phone that has a camera. But for that thing to have been birthed, people need to actually question that thing in order to understand. Do you understand what I'm saying? Awesome. Now, how does this apply to you now? Before I even go into how it applies to you, I want us to take a look at what I call the 5 levels of curiosity, right? So curiosity is a big word, right? What are there levels to this thing? Are there levels to how this thing actually works? Are there things that you need to understand that tells you, okay, that shows you, okay, so when you behave a certain way, what level of curiosity are you operating in right now? Because what I found many times is that, from the response that people, from the response that people drop in the comments and all this kind of thing, I can understand their level of curiosity, right? So the very first level of curiosity that I'm going to be talking about is what I call the passive curiosity, right? Write that down, passive curiosity. Now, passive curiosity basically, right, is a kind of curiosity that says, okay, it's the I like to call it ITK, I too know kind of curiosity, right? So these guys have the impression, right? They have the impression that they know everything, right? And you hear them say things like, I'm listening, right? That's interesting, but that's interesting. They see something and they find, okay, this thing is actually interesting, but they are not willing to go deeper to learn that thing, to learn the invisible. They are not even, in fact, they are not even able to go deeper to question that thing, right? They notice something, right? They could notice a thing, but they do not act on it, right? Now, the problem, however, is that these kind of people, right, when you find someone who has this narrative or things in his head that he knows everything already, that he knows all things, that person has either been God or it's going to be foolish, right? You're either God or you're foolish, because it is only God that knows everything. And if you think you know everything as a human being, then you are a foolish person, basically. Let's not try to sugarcoat it. If you think you know everything, you are either God, and since you're not God, you're a foolish person. And that is how it works, right? So you need to understand that people who are passively curious could, for example, let's say for example you were scrolling through Facebook, right, and you're a copywriter, right, and then you see someone, you see someone say things like, okay, I just wrote this sales copy and it pulled in, let's say $10,000 within 6 hours, right? Now, for somebody who is passively curious, that fool will go to the comment section and go and type, oh wow, God, when? Those kind of stupid things, right? Now, when they do that, you just easy to spot right there and then that this person is actually someone who is passively curious, because they've not been able to question these things, right? They are not questioning, they are not thinking, oh, okay, so if this person made $10,000 in 6 hours, how were they able to do it? What are the things that they did? How were they able to do it? What does this person know that I do not know? Like I said, they are ITK guys. They think they know everything. So they think learning from other people are arrogance. And most of the time, what I have found with people who stay there are actually three things, right? I found that they are either lazy, right, mentally lazy. They are either arrogant, or they are just being envious, right? These are like the three things that I have noticed about people who fall into this category, right? So I'll take it from the first one. So I said they are either lazy, right? So most people are just blatantly lazy, especially most young people. They are just blatantly lazy, right? To fucking sit their ass and question things, right? Because you go through your timeline and then there's so many information. You are scrolling. There's a research that says that the attention span of a human being right now is less than 6 seconds. You're struggling attention span with a goldfish. What the actual fuck, right? So you look at these things, right? Because you are overloaded with, you have so much information. Sometimes people do not even know what to focus on. So what they do is that they major on the minor, the things that they are supposed to be focusing on, the things that you see that are pertaining to your industry, are supposed to be focusing on, the major thing that you're supposed to be focusing on. Because you are passively curious, right? You do not get to focus on that things, and the things that you have no business focusing on, entertainment, news, blog, all of those stupid have you heard kind of things, right? That's the things that you actually get to focus your energy on, which is what it is stupid, right? So these are the things that you need to understand, right? Understanding the invisible forces, right? Understanding the forces that actually drives this thing. Number two, I said they are either arrogant, right? They're either arrogant. Now, understand that people who think they know it all, right? Like I said before, if you think you know it all, you're either God or you're foolish, right? People who think they know it all, they're actually arrogant people. There are people who think that, what can this person tell me? What does this person want to tell me that I've known? I don't see everything. What do you want to tell me where I never hear, where I never do? That kind of stuff, right? And when you have that kind of attitude towards life, where you have that kind of attitude towards growth, where you have that kind of attitude towards development, right? What's going to happen? You're simply someone who's passively curious. And when you're passively curious, there is a result for that. And the ultimate result for that is poverty, right? It's poverty. You become stale because, there are no fresh ideas. All of your passivity has blocked the windows, the opportunities for you to receive fresh ideas into your mind in order for you to be able to pivot, right? Now, you need to understand this very well, okay? Now, the third one I said, they are envious, right? These are people who are envious. Now, sometimes we might see certain people who we do not like. There are a lot of people. Every human being has a tendency for envy, right? Now, you might see someone who you do not like have a certain kind of result, right? And then the person shares it, and then instead of you asking, okay, so how did this person actually do it, right? The next thing that comes to your mind is envy, right? So is it the only one? That kind of a thing. Why is he bragging? Why is he post it? Must you post it? That kind of a thing, right? The reason you're thinking that way is not actually because the person posted it. It's actually because you're a foolish person who has not been able to understand the tendencies of envy in your life, right? Tendencies of envy in your life. Right now, you need to understand that for you to be able to leave that place, you need to do away with envy, right? You need to do away with, arrogance, right? You need to do away with, with laziness. Be that guy, be that lady who is steadily inquisitive, right? I'm going to come to all of that anyway, right? So be that person. These are the characteristics of people who are passively curious, right? And when you see this trait in your life or you see this trait in someone's life, understand that this person is bound for failure already. I mean, you're on a speed lane to obscurity. That is what it is about. Now, aside those people who are, are passively curious, right? We have a step above it, right? And that step is called active curiosity. And active curiosity is quite different from passive curiosity because in active curiosity, what is happening right there is that you're saying to yourself, right, that okay, so I've seen this thing, right? Let me Google it, right? Let me find out about it. But the difference, however, is that the difference between passive and active is that there is an intentional effort, right? At this point, there's an intentional effort for you to start finding about those things. So you don't just get excited about something right now. Like I always say that when people see things, what many people call a dilemma, right? What many people call a dilemma is just something that they do not understand the principles of how it works. When you don't understand the principles of electricity, when you see a light bulb turn on, you could say it is a miracle. I mean, you could easily say it's a miracle because you don't understand the principles, the invisible forces that actually backs up this thing or that makes this thing possible, right? So you could easily call that a miracle, right? Now, people who are actively curious, right? What they do is that they don't just stop at seeing this thing and be like, God, when those kind of oh wow, they are not the oh wow guys, right? They are not the wow this amazing. They are not the I'm surprised kind of guy. They are the guys who now begin to make intentional efforts. So let's say for example now you want to start a business, right? You want to start learning copywriting, right? Or you saw that copywriting is actually, you read somewhere that it can actually make you $10,000 every month, right? You're excited. It's something you want to learn. You want to make that kind of money, right? Someone who is actively curious, what he's going to do is that he's going to go to Google and go and type, what's copywriting, those kind of things. He starts imputing those kind of information. And when he starts imputing that, what is going to happen is that, he starts reading a little about it. The difference with these guys, the problem with these guys is that they just stay on the surface, right? They want to know more, but they just want to stay on the surface, right? They don't want to go deeper. They don't want to search for information. So you can even download a book on copywriting. You could download Gary Harbert's letter. You could download David Ogilvy's copies. You could download Club Hopkins. You could look for Joe Sugarman, look at all of these guys, right? But then he will never fucking sit his ass for him to actually take the time to learn these things, right?